This is Tiananmen Square, the location of the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests. These protests were student-led public demonstrations to reveal political corruption in the Chinese government. The response to these public displays was the declaration of martial law in China. The spark for the Tiananmen Square protests was the death of Hu Yaobang, the Communist Party General Secretary, who publicly spoke out against inflation and openly spoke about corruption in the Communist Party. In response to Hu Yaobang's death, students took to the streets of Tiananmen Square to protest government accountability and for the restoration of workers' control over industry in China. We sat down with a man who was a student in China at the time who prefers to go unnamed and asked him why he was involved in the Tiananmen Square protests.
Yeah, first, there was serious corruptions in the government agencies. You know, it's like a big issue with some government problems, and people don't like it for a couple years at that time. The second reason is there are a lot of fake stuff, like a fertilizer and the pest control stuff. So it didn't work, but very, very expensive. So that hurts the farmers. You know, I was from countryside. My friends, I live in countryside. The farmers complained the fertilizer is fake, or the pest control killer is not working, but very expensive. So people got very angry with that. So also, I was influenced by other students. You know, at the beginning, I didn't go to the street at the beginning because I was a graduate student, kind of busy with my study. So, but later on, more and more students, also my friends, classmates, went to the street. So, okay, so I went to the street with friends and classmates, students.
In response to the protests, the government declared martial law and closed troops down into Tiananmen Square on June 4, 1989. The troops were given the order to halt the protests using all means necessary. The following are accounts of the events that happened after martial law was declared.
The crackdown came as a shock to students. It wasn't that they did not expect the government to react. They did, and they all, I believe, knew that there was a real possibility that this could end quite badly. But they truly believed that there wouldn't be bloodshed, that the army would not crack down with that kind of ferocity, in part because many members of the army had sided with them, and many members of the local police, in particular, in Beijing and elsewhere, had sided with the students, had sided with the protests. And so, you know, as a correspondent from afar, we didn't know how it was going to end either. That's why we delayed perhaps too long in sending sort of reinforcements to this story. We thought, well, there would be compromises here, there would be compromises there, but it wouldn't become the bloodshed, the massacre that it ended up becoming. And I think when I got to Shanghai, the students were clearly shocked by what had happened.
And on the way to school, at least two persons who rode bikes helped me, give me a ride 2 times. So I went to school almost 11 p.m. in the evening. So on the way to school, I saw burned cars, burned trucks, and also saw soldiers, military soldiers with the military trucks. I also saw people, citizens, talk to the soldiers and ask them out of Beijing and the student good, something like that. So I did see like a tank got burned on the street near my school, and so the next day, that would be the 5th of June. I went to visit a couple universities with 2 of my friends. We rode bikes, go walk around to at least 2 or 3 schools. What I saw is at least 2 persons died.
Yeah, that was my next question. Was like, did you have any fear for being involved with the protests?
Did I have any
fear about
feelings about it?
Fear.
Oh, oh no. Oh, I loved it. Oh no, there wasn't. No, no fear at all. There wasn't. Well, no, I didn't. And I marched. Well, I've already said in my city there were marches there too. Oh no, no fear. People were waving out, from the apartments, from the windows, and waving. It was just a remarkable moment. It really was a remarkable moment, and now that it's not mentioned anymore, probably. Well, it's not mentioned. It probably is mentioned some, but when that time comes around each year, there's extra. You may have read there's extra security in Beijing, and people who they think might make trouble are under house arrest, and till the day, till things blow over. But it's really, someday there'll be a memorial. Someday, but not now.
So were the students fleeing back to their homes, or just...
They were trying to get out of town. They were just trying to get out of town. I imagine some went to their homes. I think others went in hiding. And there was a significant, small but significant operation by sympathizers outside of China to smuggle leaders of the student protests outside of China. And a number of them got to the U.S., as a matter of fact, because they feared that they would be imprisoned or executed.